Welcome to the first episode of the Knitting Roundup. This is my first ever podcast episode, I guess, if you will. This is going to be filmed every quarterly, and I'm going to be sharing all things knitting related, from finished projects to works in progress and even any new yarn that I've acquired in the past 3 months as well. 2025 is actually the first full year of me knitting. I started knitting in June last year, and so I'm really excited to have a full year of me knitting different and new items, and I just want to post this kind of videos to just document my journey thus far. So this is the first episode. I am so excited about it. I'm going to be sharing everything I've done from January to March this year. I think this year has been off to a pretty good start, and I finished 3 projects this year, and I'll show them to you guys later. But let's start off with some fun stuff first. I will be showing you guys a small yarn haul of all the new yarn that I've got in the past 3 months. I've noticed a significant increase in the number of yarn I've gotten, and I attribute that to a bit more sleepless nights that I've gotten this past 3 months. Whenever I find myself unable to sleep, I end up scrolling the internet and scouring the internet for yarn. I do some window shopping, and sometimes that turns into me actually putting the yarn into the shopping cart and checking out, and I'm going to show you those. So the first yarn that I got is from The Wool and the Gang, and this is actually a yarn brand that is, I think, really popular, and I've been meaning to try out their yarn as well ever since I found out about the Ava top by Mochi Knits. And so I got the Tina Tape yarn from The Wool and the Gang, and this is so soft to the touch, and it's actually quite cooling to the touch as well. It's a really thin kind of yarn. It's like thin and thick at the same time. It really comes like a tape, and I guess that's where you get this name from, and a great summer yarn, I would say. So this ball comes in 100 grams and it is 115 meters, so you can see that this is actually a bit of a thicker kind of yarn. It is knit up with, the suggested needle size is actually 8 millimeters, which is really thick, especially if you're considering this as a summer yarn. So I am using this to knit the Ava top, and I'll talk more about that later, but I have yet to test it out and see if it's really suitable to be used in the summer. But otherwise, this is such a lovely color, and I'm really happy and excited to be using this. It is quite easy to work with as well, so for the most part it's quite a fun yarn to work with. And I got it in another color as well. I got it in 2 colors, the eucalyptus color, and this is the dusty blue color. This is such a lovely, gorgeous color as well, and it is a more muted version of the eucalyptus. I would say both colors are quite muted, but this one's just a bit more of a cool option, and I'm planning to use this yarn to make the baby Berlin tea, although it's not set in stone yet. What this yarn will be used for is still up for discussion. So my next yarn haul is from the Wool Warehouse, of which I bought a embarrassingly amount of yarn from there. What can I say? I was out one night and I was scrolling, and I stumbled upon the Wool Warehouse, and the yarn there is so affordable, and I got some drops yarn. I knew that drops yarn is an affordable yarn, but I didn't know it was that affordable, and so I got kind of crazy and bought a few colors as well. So let me show them to you. I got the drop spout in 3 different colors, and this one is, I can't remember those names, so I will put those down below in the description box, but this is one of them that I got, and this is the color 21. Actually, let me pull up the names of the colors real quick. Yeah, so this color is in Almond Rose, and this is just a very nice muted pink color. And then I got one more, and this is the Rose Watercolor. This is a lighter pink version, and I actually bought these 2 yarns for them to complement each other, because I was thinking of maybe doing some color work with these 2 yarns, and I think it would turn out so well as well. I really love this yarn. It is so soft, and actually the yarn composition is exactly the same as the Santa's Gun Lena. It is 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen, which is exactly the same yarn composition, but at such a more affordable price tag. So I would totally recommend this yarn if you are thinking of using the Santa's Gun liner but maybe turned away by the price tag. And due to the different yarn compositions, you can see that there is a little bit of difference in the yarn as well. I will show a close-up video of all these yarns, but you can see differences in the colors as well. And then the last color that I got is navy blue. It's a very nice, beautiful blue color, and I'm going to be using it for the tea number 1 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. My Favorite Things Knitwear also knitted it in navy blue, so I wanted to follow her because I love how the whole look turned out, and I want to copy that and make one for myself as well. The next yarn that I got is also from Drops, but it's ball meal lin instead. So it's this one over here, and this is actually let me see, this is actually 53% cotton and 47% linen. So the higher linen content makes for this yarn to feel a little bit more rustic and a bit rougher than the Drop Spell. As with all linen yarns, it might be a bit tougher on the hands when knitted up, but I do hope that it will bloom well and it will turn into a really nice and soft yarn, which I've heard can happen for linen yarns as well. Speaking of which, I also did a gauge swatch for my Drop Spell because I started on the tea number 1, but I started it in April, so it wouldn't be in this video, but I did a gauge swatch for it, and this is how the Drop Spell looks like. I have also blocked it, so you can see it is pretty drapey. I knitted this with, I think, 4mm needles, so there is quite a good drape here. Not super transparent as well. It's pretty opaque, and yeah, it's just really nice and soft, and I hope that it gets softer the more I wear it and the more I wash it as well. Now, I'm not done yet. I still bought one last yarn from the Wool Warehouse, and this is by Malabrigo yarn, and this is such a beautiful deep maroon color, and this is the silky merino version. It is 51% silk and 49% merino wool, and I love this yarn composition in which the silk is super soft but the merino just helps it to maintain its shape as well. So I am planning to use this for the revenge dress. I think that's what it's called, but when I first saw the revenge dress, I knew I wanted to knit that up, but in a really deep red or even burgundy color, and so I think this color will suit it so well, and it's actually a little bit variegated as well. There's a little bit of, you know, it's not just one singular color, it's a bit variegated, and I think that will come out so lovely as a dress. The last thing I got from the Wool Warehouse is not yarn but some buttons, and it also just started raining, so if you hear some noise, that is the rain. But these buttons are so cute, and I can't remember how much they cost, but I think they were pretty affordable as well. Everything from the Wool Warehouse as a whole was pretty affordable, and hence why I bought so many things. And I bought these buttons to go with this yarn. I think together they will just look really well and complement each other really well. So I am excited to knit something out with this. I have no concrete plans yet, but I have some ideas for it. The last place that I shopped at was from Korea, and so I went to Korea last week and I just came back. On my last trip to Korea, I got some bangs. I cut my hair. It's just a thing when you go to Korea, you have to visit one of the salons there and you have to cut your hair or color your hair or do something with your hair, and so I decided to cut some bangs. And the last time I did bangs was when I was 14 years old, I think. That was a really dark time. I did not like bangs at all and never had bangs ever since, but I decided to try to give bangs another chance, and I'm liking it so far. And of course, on my trip, I had to go to Bundle Story. This is just a beautiful yarn shop and cafe all in one. The moment you enter in, you're greeted by a floor-to-ceiling wall full of just yarn, and it's so beautiful. The first floor is just all yarn, knitting accessories, crochet accessories, so there are needles there, there are buttons, there are different types of things. There are also knitting kits that you can buy and knit with as well, and then there's also a great variety of yarn, and some of the yarn is surprisingly really affordable. When I went to Japan, I felt like the yarn in Japan were all really expensive, but that was not the case for Bundle Story in Korea. The second floor is a knitting cafe in which you can just buy some food and sit there and knit, and I was surrounded by all these people around me who were knitting, and I of course had brought my own knitting project as well to just be part of the whole experience. And I bought some pastries from there as well, and there were these cute little buttons. It was all keeping within the knitting and crochet theme, so that was just perfect. And while I was there, of course, I had to get some yarn as well. I think the rain got a little bit lighter, I'm not so sure, but if you can still hear it, I'm sorry for the weather, I guess. So I went to Bundle Story and I bought some yarn. I made a point ever since I started knitting to buy yarn from the countries that I visit just as a form of souvenir, to just have a little piece of knitted item that reminds me of the place that I visited. So from Korea, I got this yarn from Bundle Story, and this is 100% combed cotton, and it is a really nice beige color. I can't remember the color of this yarn, but it is number 2 whatever this is, and it is just super soft to the touch. I am so excited to start knitting with this. This is definitely going to be used to knit a maybe slouchy kind of t-shirt or blouse, and nothing too tight fitting because I do know that cotton can stretch out over time. So actually I bought this using the yarn requirements of the T number 1 because I really like the look of T number 1, and if I enjoyed the whole process as well with knitting with the drop spell, I may make a second one with this yarn as well. But of course, once again, it's not set in stone. I might change my plans for this yarn, but we'll see how it goes. And also I bought some buttons from Bundle Story. I have no idea what I'm going to use these buttons for, but they are so cute and they were actually so affordable. Like, I think one button was 500 Korean won, which is super cheap, and I bought a few. Let me show them to you. I'll show you guys an up close video of these buttons, but they are so adorable. I bought 2 different kinds. One is a small round wooden button, and the other one is a bit more of a like a stick kind of look, which would be perfect for cardigans or something like that. So that was all for my yarn haul. I bought so much yarn that I think I have enough to last me till the end of the year, but of course that doesn't mean I won't buy more yarn as well. But moving on to finished project. The first sweater is the Euro sweater by Aegyo Knits, and this is how she looks like. I have a video of me wearing it in Korea, so I'll show it to you over here. And I started knitting this sweater in October last year, and I just finished it in... Hold on, I have this book here that I write all of my knitting stats down so that I remember every single thing. But I started knitting it in October last year and I finished it in mid-Feb this year. This was knitted with 100% Peruvian Highland wool, and it's by Phil Colana, and I love this yarn. It was such an ease to work with. I feel like I've been talking about this sweater for a long time, but this is the first ever sweater that I've knitted, and that's why it took me a bit longer time as well. Of course, it was a bit more of a difficult sweater to knit up as well, with all the cabling and the fact that it is a side-to-side construction. I definitely encountered some difficulties with the sweater, made a few mistakes here and there, and I had to go back and forth a little bit, and that's why it took me a bit longer to fix the mistakes that I made. But overall, I think it was such a pleasant experience knitting this sweater. This outcome, I mean, the sweater turned out so beautifully as well. This is an oversized boxy sweater, and at first I feel like when I knitted it, I felt like the sleeves were a bit too long, and I still do think it is a slight tad bit too long, but at first when I finished blocking it, it was way too long, like over my fingers, and so I tried to block it a second time and make it a little bit shorter, and it actually kind of worked, and over time when I wore it, I got used to it. So even though the sleeves are a tad bit long, it extends to the midpoint of my hands. That's actually what the pattern called for and suggested, so it still worked out. So I'm really happy with how this sweater turned out. I think all in all, this was such a good learning experience and just a very good first sweater for me to start off my knitting journey. And I also think that this was the first proper like knitted garment that I made as well, with proper yarn and everything. And so yeah, all in all, such a great experience. Just absolutely love the sweater, and it is so soft right now. I've worn it I think maybe 4 times in Korea, and it is just so soft right now. You can see the drape. It is so soft and flowy, and there is a little bit of pilling. I have read some of the comments about this yarn, that this yarn peels after time, and there is definitely a little bit of pilling. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it has peeled a little bit, but nothing too much that I am too affected by. This sweater was actually sometimes worn underneath a coat, so there was all that friction of me wearing a coat over the sweater and taking out repeatedly, and the sweater still looks pretty good. Of course, I haven't worn it enough times to really give a proper review of this yarn, but I do think it has stood up quite well so far. And the next thing that I finished is this natter dress by Yulin Knitwear, and this well, obviously I have yet to cut out the ends, so let's just pretend that they didn't exist. I always cut off my ends after I have blocked my dress, and I finished blocking it but I have yet to cut it out. And this was knit with the Knitting for Olive cotton merino, and I was holding it double. So I talked about it a little bit in my previous video, and I used these two balls of yarn. I used elephant blue as well as dusty blue wool, and these two yarns paired together made for this beautiful, gorgeous blue speckled dress as well. So this is how she turned out. It's pretty funny because when I started knitting this dress, I knitted it with the expectation that it would take me a whole year, or at least I would knit this dress over the course of a year. And yet when I started knitting this, it got really addictive and I just couldn't stop. I finished this dress really quickly. I started this dress on 13 February and I finished 23rd March, so it took me a little bit more than a month to knit this dress, and that is pretty fast considering this is a maxi dress. So the back could be customized to be either a high back or a low back depending on whether you want this dress to be bra friendly or not. I wanted this dress to be bra friendly, but at the same time I did want a little bit of a lower back, so I knitted to the point where it was just above my bra straps, and then I joined it in to make the back. So this is how it looks like. All in all, I think this set of instructions were pretty easy to follow, pretty straightforward. I love the construction. The only thing is that for the double knitted edge, I did a bind off at the same time as I knitted it down, and I think at this point in time it was my first time doing a unfolded edge, and so I ended up doing it a bit too tight. I tried to fix that with blocking, but obviously it still wasn't good enough, and you can see it's just not very well done. So I'm just going to undo that and then bind it off more loosely and then sew it down instead of sewing the edge together as I'm binding it off, which I think was probably the reason why it ended up really tight and a bit wonky as well. You can see the stitches are all slanted. But all in all, love this dress. I love this drape. It's really nice and flowy as well, but because I held it double-stranded, it's a little bit thicker, so there's a bit more structure to the dress as well, which is what I do prefer for dresses especially. I enjoyed this whole knitting process so much, and I love the outcome of this knitted garment so much that I feel like I want to make a second one in maybe a light or dark brown color. Yeah, I saw some variations of this dress in a dark brown color, and I think it looks so beautiful that I kind of want to make one for myself as well, but we'll see about that. I have yet to get yarn for my second dress, so I'll hold it off and finish my other projects first before going back to this. But all in all, I would really recommend this pattern. I think this was so fun to make, and the end product is just so beautiful. It fits me really well as well, so everything is really clear, concise, and I love it. The last thing that I finished is scarf number 4 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I was talking about it in my previous video as well, but I didn't think I would actually knit it so soon. I decided that I wanted to knit one scarf for Korea because I saw the weather forecast and I realized that it was actually going to be way colder than I expected it to be, so I decided that I wanted to bring a scarf with me, but a lightweight scarf. So this is not like too big. This is, I think, 104 cm to 120 cm in length, and yeah, this scarf was such a quick knit. I knitted this in one day, and I think it took me around 8 hours to knit the entire thing. This was knit up with the excess yarn that I had from a US sweater, and at first I thought that I wouldn't be able to wear this with my sweater because of how the colors are exactly the same. I thought that it would look a bit conflicting, I don't know, or like clashing. But actually when I wore them together, I loved the look. It felt so polished, like it was meant to be a set of a scarf and a sweater together. This scarf was super simple to make. This is just a variation of purl and knit stitches, but because of the way it is done, it just looks very interesting. This scarf is really versatile as well. I knitted it long enough that I could wrap it twice around my neck, or if I don't want to, I can just loop it once around my neck and then tie a small knot in the front over here, and it's just very simple and very chic and elegant. So this was a 10 over 10. Love knitting this pattern. It was so fast, it was so fun, and the outcome is so great. instructions are very clear and concise once again, so super easy to follow, and I would totally recommend this pattern for if you have some scrap yarn lying around, excess yarn, and you just want to clear it. This is such a great way to clear your scrap yarn. And now moving on to whips that I have. The first thing that I have is, let's talk about my Ava top. As I was saying, I did buy the, I suddenly forgot the name. I suddenly bought the Tina tape yarn from the Wool and the Gang, and so I knitted up a swatch, and this is how it looks like. As I said, it is super cool to the touch. Like, even touching it right now against my skin, it just feels super cooling, and it is really drapey as well. You can see that it's just really nice, and there's just such a nice drape and softness to it. This was knit up, if I recall correctly, with I think 6mm needles, so it is a good size. It's quite opaque, you can't really see through it at all. It's quite opaque, so like that. So I started knitting it, and this is how it looks like. I am actually almost done with this Ava top. Oops, it's a bit messy, but yeah, I'm actually almost done knitting it. This is how it looks like so far. I have just to do the I-cord edging, and let's just ignore the difference in lengths. I actually made a mistake for this one, so I have to unbind it and redo it. But yeah, I'm just left with the I-cord edging, and looking at the shirt, it looks like it might be a little bit short as well, so I'll see if I have to fix that as well. But other than that, I'm almost done with this top. So far I've used, I think, 1.5 balls of yarn. This top really doesn't require too much yarn at all. Looking at how she did it, it is actually really low. I tried to make mine a little bit higher, and so we'll see how it goes. I'm not so sure if it's gonna turn out well or if it's gonna look good, because she explicitly stated that this design is specifically for a more low cut, but that's just something that I'm not too comfortable with, so I'm just making mine much shorter than how she intended it to be. So I'm just hoping that it still flows well and looks good. And the last thing that I have on my needles is the Umbria Summer Top by Cookie the Knitter. So this is actually all I have on my needles right now. I'm not even done with the yoke. You can tell that I am much slower with this one because this is a fingering weight yarn and it's knitted on, let's see, 3mm needles. So it is such a slow knit, but it's pretty nice as well. I want to say, starting off with this pattern right off the bat, I encountered some difficulties. Don't think it's anything to do with the designer herself, but I had trouble even deciding which needles I should knit with. So I used the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk in the colorway Blue Tit, and this is just a beautiful, gorgeous blue color. I realized that most of my knits so far have all been blue in color. That is by no means on purpose. It's not even my favorite color, but so far I've just been really drawn to all the blue color yarns. So this is the color that I've chosen, and it is so beautiful, and that is the yarn that's actually suggested by Cookie the Knitter as well. Let me just pull up my iPad so that I don't say anything wrongly. So she actually recommended the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk as well. She recommended to hold it held single and using 3.5mm needles. The suggested needle size by Knitting for Olive is actually 3mm needles, and so looking at the yarn itself, it is so thin that I was questioning if it would be too holey or if there would be too many holes in the finished project if I were to knit the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk held single but with 3.5mm needles. So I at first intended to hold it held double with, I think it was 4mm needles. So this is how it turned out. I think it was pretty nice. I quite like how it turned out. However, it was a little bit stiff. It is still pretty soft and drapey, but definitely you can see that there's quite a bit of structure to it. So I wanted to try it out again, but this time around held single, and I followed what she suggested, which is 3.5mm needles but held single, and instantly you can see that there are so many holes in this project, and it's definitely, I don't think it's because I have a loose gauge, because I calculated this gauge and I still had a smaller gauge than what she had in her pattern. So I can't imagine knitting this with an even looser tension, because this top will just have so many holes in it, which is totally something that I would not wear. So I knitted a 3rd gauge swatch. This time I knitted it with 3mm needles, and I like this look much better. Definitely much less holes, still a little bit of holes, but I think much better than the 3.5mm needles. So I prefer it to this. You can see that this is much softer, more flowy, more drapey than the pure silk held double. And so that's how I finally arrived at knitting with 3mm needles with pure silk held single. Many gauge swatches for this one project, which I was really not feeling it at all, because sometimes I just want to get over and done with the gauge swatch and just start on my project. So thankfully, I finally managed to get started on my project, and it's been okay so far, not too many hiccups. And yeah, it's just a bit of a slower knit just because of how many stitches they are and how much smaller the needles are. So I think this is definitely a project that will take quite a bit of time and something that I may only be able to get done by July or so. I'm honestly like not really in a rush to knit that. Moving ahead to what projects I want to knit in the next quarter, I think this video is getting a little bit longer, but I just want to share a few things that I have planned. And the first thing is the T number 1 by My Favorite Things knitwear. This is something that I've actually already casted on and started a little bit on, and I will show that in the next knitting roundup video. So for the T number 1, I'll be knitting it with the Drop Spell yarn, and I have already cast it on, started a little bit with it, and I think because I'm knitting with 4mm needles, I should be able to be done with it by the end of this month or even maybe mid-May. And then I'm also planning on knitting the Flurry Sweater by Yulin Knitwear. This is a sweater that has caught my eye and has been on my mind for a while now, and I have yet to get the yarn for that. I'm thinking of using the Drops Nepal yarn. I was looking through Ravelry and I saw that a lot of the people who knitted the Flurry Sweater knitted with either the Drops Air or the Drops Nepal, and I'm interested and intrigued with the Drops Nepal. I want to see how it looks like. The next thing that I hope to finish is the Umbria Summer Top by the end of next quarter. So I have these 3 projects up ahead. I don't think I'm planning on starting anything else yet, but that might change. Other than that, that's all for this video. I am finally done. I'm sorry if this video turned out a little bit longer than expected. It has been really fun just showing all of my projects, everything that I've been up to, things that I'm planning to make, and I think this is just really fun to just sit down and be able to share my love of knitting with you guys, and I hope to form a community on here as well. So if you guys are currently knitting anything or have any knitting plans, do let me know down in the comments down below, because I am super curious and nosy and I just want to know what everyone's up to. So yeah, that's all for this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye!